Welcome to Below the Line with Dr. Bennie L. Harris. The Chancellor of the University of South Carolina Upstate talks with top leaders about issues such as change, technology, education, and leadership. Please enjoy.
Okay, I want to welcome you to Below the Line. I'm here with Chad Cousin, who's the Chief Executive Officer for McMillan Pazdan Smith Architecture. Chad, thank you so much for being with me on Below the Line.
Dr. Harris, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, and we certainly appreciate the relationship we've had with USC Upstate also over the many years.
Thank you. Yeah. So, Chad, let's just jump right into it. You have experienced a very diverse career. So how did your early roles prepare you for leadership at McMillan Pazdan Smith right now?
If you look through the career journey, so I actually started my career in implementing and then ultimately providing management and consulting services around ERP transformation and construction and in the building materials supply industry. I think there were two levels of value in that and preparing me for the career today, and a couple of stopping points along the way. But what I will say is exposure to companies throughout North America and even internationally in building supply and in construction gives you a lot of visibility into well-working businesses, processes that work, and how the process of design and construction come together, to deliver the built environment.
So tell me, how did that lead into coming from those environments to leading an architecture firm?
Yeah, there were sort of two planes there. One was moving from that industry and the opportunity to lead through a firm that grew very rapidly at a North American scale. M&A opportunities with that, the ability to start up divisions and to consolidate groups of people to do great things. On the one hand, on the other hand, the exposure to different markets, different businesses, ultimately led me to wanting to get more involved, not just at a global level, but at a regional level. So to go into a design build firm, to be a developer, and to start to make an impact in the built environment as someone who was helping to enable and finance projects in the region. And then that led, after the recession, to an opportunity to join a firm that had merged in 2009 between Ron Smith, McMillan Smith Partners in Spartanburg, and Joe Paz and Brad Smith in Greenville with Pazdan Smith Group. As those firms merged in 2009 to combine their resources and sort of get through the recession, they were looking strategically at what comes next.
Yeah, so you've been having some enormous growth. We're going to talk about that later on, but let's step back a little bit. Tell me a little about who you are and did you see yourself being where you are today?
I did not imagine that I would be the CEO of an architecture firm, 20 years ago, much less, as a young person. I studied economics. I really thought I'd go probably into law, but what I learned was I'm a strategic person. Right. And I enjoy the idea of helping look at opportunities, markets, what are potential solutions to markets? And then from there, how do you build an organization to take advantage of those opportunities? And I think a lot of what I've sought throughout my career, and I think when we think about leadership, is the willingness, to be bold and to pursue opportunities, but also be disciplined in the way you do that. And so I think that's led. I'm also, by the way, a creative. I love to draw. I love to sketch. I love to sketch. I love the aesthetic. Even in development and in construction, I enjoy being around the table to be partake in and be involved in the planning of a development and its impact on those who would encounter the built space, as well as the community surrounding and how it could potentially create a better community in its context. And so for me. This is the dream,
And actually,
to be part of.
What architecture does for society, it just brings character to society. It makes people feel better, gives them that awe and that amazing experience when they experience what has been built, what has been envisioned by creative folks like yourself and your team. It's exciting. I just love architecture tours when I go to cities as well.
There's a strong context, Dr. Harris. Also, the concept it's pervasive and it's critical to our culture. Is that context of being a citizen architect? Right. And so beyond, call it sort of the master builder skill of advising, planning, and designing spaces and environments. It's also understanding what is the impact and the value of that. I don't believe that what we do is necessarily eternal, although I do believe of eternal importance in things. But it is incredibly gratifying to see people experience for the better,
Right.
the ability to accomplish a mission or to serve people or to encounter space in a way that's productive, positive, and contextually good for all.
It may not be internal in the way that we think from a spiritual perspective, but when you look at architecture and the impact that it has had on society over millennials, you really start seeing the stories that it tells about a society way, way back 1,000 years ago or several thousand years ago. That's not part of our question, but it's just as I was sitting listening to you, just popped in my head how important what you do and what your teams do, and
enduring concepts in design that are in a continuum of kind of human experience and humanistic design that we still use today.
Yeah.
You know?
Now we did some research on you, and in researching you, I found some very interesting things. You have been described as more of a wartime general than a peacetime general. Now, how has framing influenced your decisions during your tenure? Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that structure: wartime general versus a peacetime general.
That advice was received from a mentor as I was looking at some career inflection points.
Okay,
and I think the significance of that to me is not just in what I do currently and how it's affected maybe the leadership, the way I look to lead as a servant leader at MPS. It's the philosophy of where I'm best and where is having a very lofty vision.
Okay.
And creating organization and strategy around that vision.
Okay.
I need a big hill to climb personally at all times. And I've always looked at career and organizational development and strategy in sort of 3 to 5 year increments, it both personally and how I fit in the context of where I think I can create a meaningful impact for people and serve them well or lead an organization to accomplish great things. And so I need a big hill at all times. I think the other piece of that is I know to surround myself like a lot of leaders, I think who are more maybe visionary in the way they look to lead with people who are more attentive to details and maintaining things. I do believe in structure and a rigor to what we do, but I enjoy taking ideation and then converting it into strategy and then trying to take a disciplined approach to create opportunity out of those strategies.
And it's been framed many ways in research and talking about leaders, but I found that some of the most provocative and transformational leaders need to build something. They need to be a visionary. They're not there to maintain. And maintaining bores them. It's very hard, but they need to create and build capacity in people. And so, and below the line, we've talked to a number of leaders. I'm seeing this very consistent thing, and none of them are just going along to get along. All of them want to make an impact and change the world somehow within their context as well. So as CEO, what goals did you set early in your leadership, and how have they shifted as the firm has grown?
So when I joined MPS in 2012, we were about 90 people in the combined offices in the upstate of South Carolina, Charleston, with a fledgling office in Atlanta and in Asheville. We're now approaching about 500 people in 11 studios or offices with 7 significant practice lanes in which we operate in the built environment. So it's a very different organization today in terms of the breadth and the depth of impact we can have in the region and on communities. But what I'll share there is in coming on board in 2018 officially as a CEO, there was transition. We went through ownership transition really before that, 2015, 2016, to create a diversity of ownership, governance for the firm, the concept of setting strategic vision, organizing into practice groups with a strong sense of connection of those practice groups at the community level where studios operate, like the Spartanburg community studio we're in today. The practice line, we're about 80% institutional to private sector division of our practices. So healthcare, education, both higher ed and K-12. We look at civic and cultural work. And then on the private sector side, it's primarily mixed use and commercial development, and then the industrial markets. And that's sort of how we organize the firm in practice groups that operate across the whole footprint and allow us to develop deep expertise that can be brought to bear in any given community opportunity.
Yeah.
I think the heart of it, though, is connecting that concept of a community studio, right, and how we can then benefit the surrounding environs. There are roughly 38 to 40 municipal statistical areas in just the core Southeast of about 350,000 people north.
Okay.
And if you think about the way we operate, our goal, our aspiration is to impact communities throughout the Southeast.
Okay.
So when I came as a CEO, that was sort of my mission and thought and vision is there's a uniqueness in a bit of we're a bit of a rebel because most consultants in building a firm like this would say, hey, listen, pick 2 or 3 lanes, be national in healthcare, be national in education. Why add the private sector?
Okay.
Or
so is that part of your acquisition strategy when you look at have you have grown and strategically? It's like, how do I be great in the construction environment? How to be great building capacity in healthcare, capacity in education,
yes.
and just really have a pretty comprehensive portfolio.
Both organically and inorganically in terms of how we're acquiring and integrating great firms.
Okay.
Is to both build our depth of practice capability at the regional to national level, but then also to have the opportunity to authentically be deeply serving a community.
Okay.
It's not Ricky Bobby, if you're not first, you're last. Yeah. But for me, Dr. Harris, if we want to be genuinely engaged and invested in the communities that we're serving, not parachuting in on a project, setting up a temporary storefront, and then retreating.
So what is your foundational anchor when you look at your organization, McMillan Pazdan Smith? How do you tell your story? How do you talk about your portfolio? How do you talk about your company, I guess, from a strategic perspective?
It's really two points. And it starts actually with our sense of purpose and our core values. And I don't mean those just as things on the wall. We talk about it all the time. When we talk about strategy, does this serve our purpose? Does this serve our core values? But in the implementation of it, the way, and that is to create a meaningful and lasting impact for the good of all in the communities throughout the Southeast.
Okay.
And then when we talk about our values and how we articulate that in what we do, we spend a lot of time discussing what those values mean. And for us, it's elevating and inspiring, both in our work with our clients and in the communities that we're helping to create the built environment for. It's fostering trust internally and externally, and with the surrounding community and the impact and the quality of our work.
Yeah.
It's serving with integrity, having a servant attitude. I hope when people see McMillan Pazdan Smith folks coming forward, and I hope I'm a servant leader to demonstrate that, they see humility but capability.
Yeah.
And I think if we stay true to that as a North Star, along with staying curious, always learning, always innovating, and our other final motto is we, not I, both in the way we approach projects with our clients and then internally in the way we assemble and collaborate on work, then that keeps us true to things.
And actually, and listening to you articulate your vision, your why, who you are as a corporation, as an entity, I see it. I work closely here in Spartanburg with Ron Smith. I work with Karen Calhoun, and I'm also the chair of the Big South Conference. And we have institutions in the Southeast, and I see you there. I see Ron there. I see others there. And it's never been a sales pitch. It's been a part of a community.
Right.
And I see them at receptions. I see them showing up. I would ask them, so tell me why you're here. I thought you were in Spartanburg. But you have all these great relationships with people that they're part of the community, a part of what matters to us as institutions of higher education. I didn't make the connection because I never thought about your company that way.
Yeah.
But seeing your people, seeing how you ever articulate your vision and your why, it makes sense as to how they are integrated thoroughly within the community at all levels.
There's a saying, Dr. Harris, it's hard to be a prophet in your own hometown. and I think that when we talk about what we're endeavoring to do, I think the highest compliment we can get is that the community sees us as integrated community architects. I think sometimes telling the story, though, of what we're really doing and to me, the reward is in seeing the impact of the projects, but to be able to communicate what we're really, the breadth of capability and depth of capability we have in these practice areas to bring to those projects. And then it becomes demonstrated when the community experiences, like here in Spartanburg, when they experience our ability to complete the baseball stadium or the courthouse or things going back, even like the restoration of the Montgomery building, or the campus work that we've done at USC Upstate and at Wofford and Converse. and so on. I mean, it's,
to be able to live in that space the way you all do takes a lot of confidence and integrity because you don't do a project and run away. I'm going to see you next week at a breakfast. I'm going to see you here. So you got to own, so your integrity and your voice and your work matters because people truly invest in people, not necessarily in a big firm name, but they invest in the people who are part of that particular firm. So how does the recent growth equity partnership with Providers Capital Partners support your long-term strategic vision for the future?
Sure. I was just in Detroit with a quarterly board meeting with our Providers Capital Partners. Look, we have a tremendous growth capital partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for me to share. Number one, we are a very profitable, well-run firm.
Okay.
The key strategic decision we were able to make with Ron and Joe and Brad early on, even as we were contemplating beginning with the whole firm to set on a trajectory for growth, was we were going to continuously look to reinvest in the firm. And that a lot of firms stay a certain size because it's kind of a lifestyle firm. Yeah. Right. The owner takes a certain amount of distributions from the business each year. They share in a good culture. They're sharing some of the fruit of that with the team. Right. But there's a sort of there's a limit to the reinvestment that goes into moving the business strategically into a growing firm. We sought out a capital partner offensively. We didn't need liquidity. We'd already accomplished owner succession. Okay. We have a tremendous group of developing leaders throughout the firm. We continue to add to that. What we saw was relationally, we were having significant conversations with a number of great firms who were like-minded in their purpose vision. Okay. But the leap for them to go from where they were, for instance, in a Huntsville, Alabama, or in a Columbus and Auburn, location in Georgia and Alabama, or other places we'll announce in the future. It's a leap to make the investments and to have the vision and the successive capabilities to support your team to accomplish that kind of growth. So with the infrastructure that we have, the systems that we have to promote, a consistently successful financial result annually that allows us to reinvest in our markets and to take care of clients and grow our capabilities to clients, we became very compelling as a potential option. Also, I think just culturally, it resonates with people in the market, at least the folks that we enjoy, integrating with our mission, that they're community-minded folks who also want to grow their excellence in design and the impact they can make on their communities. Those are the two things we're striving to do throughout the Southeast and eventually probably beyond. But I think that there was so much opportunity relative to the amount of capital that we wanted to put to work. And we were able to do it with minimal operating leverage. So we're in a very strong financial position on the balance sheet. So we found a terrific partner who, rather than when you think about private equity, whether you're, those who actually work with growth equity understand in a people business, which we have a volunteer army, right? Yeah. It's not about reducing cost or just kind of, tightening up the screws on minor drivers of EBITDA at that level, earnings. It's really about growth and responsible growth, and how do you invest behind the things that where those investments, both in human capital, technology, innovation, capability, can allow you to do great things. So we found a great partner through a very careful process who's come aboard to help us do that. And it's for
how
us,
involved is your partner into
they're not very involved. Okay. I mean, they're a great set of advisors to us on what's happening in the market. Right. And you want that. I have an expression when we went into that process and kind of explained it to our principals. I did not want hands on. Okay. I didn't want hands off. Okay. I wanted hands with. Okay. And so what's key to us is a hands with partnership that brings some additional financial capability and backing for us to be bold, but responsibly bold.
And that's critical when a company like yours that is growing have this business strategy for growth and for penetrating certain markets is to have an investor who can help leverage what you're trying to do, but also if they don't know as much about it, having confidence in management to be able to do that.
And it's not unique to architecture, right? It's been happening in engineering for years. In fact, of the ENR 500, the Engineering News Record 500, that's architecture engineering firms. I think now like 250 or so of the top 500 have some form of equity partnership. Okay. So we're not in any way an oddity.
Yeah.
I think what we're doing is unique.
Okay.
The way we're employing that capital for the long term to build an enduring firm and platform, as opposed to just thinking transactionally about recapitalization every 5 years, is unique in the market.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing with that capital.
So tell me about how McMillan Pazdan Smith is leveraging technologies and digital tools to enhance design and collaboration.
That's a broad subject.
Very broad.
Yeah.
And towards the end of it, I want you to integrate artificial intelligence into that conversation as well. So talk to me about how, which is interesting.
It is. And let's talk about innovation technology relative to AI as a kind of a subset of that discussion to some degree. So we've always attempted to lead with technology and innovation in all of our processes.
Okay.
Both design and business. I came from the technology world and the application of technology to make businesses more effective, more efficient. So you can imagine naturally that was an early, the idea of establishing a PMO, a project management office in an architecture firm. I didn't know any other firms that really did that effectively unless they were really at scale. So, but that concept of having embedded project managers alongside the project architects who are driving the design, but also looking at the financial health, the client satisfaction and experience, the design outcomes and risk management, contract management associated with those projects was a structure that was a little unique for a firm that size at the time. Now we're doing that at scale, but it's all done through employed technology. We actively use Power BI data, a data warehouse to mine information to help us inform future projects, to use aggregated data to understand the cost of design decision making, that's embedded in the design process. To help clients stay on target, but also maximize the value of that investment. When you think about a higher education environment or a K-12 bond referendum, as a for instance, these are major moments, right? Where these are going to be resilient buildings that are going to make an impact on the campus, on curriculum, on the ability to meet student-centered need for decades. So we take it but leveraging information is in order to inform what makes those effective spaces and also what's innovating in student-centered environments, what's innovating in the classroom and in remote learning, in student life.
And you also you can create scale. You can be much more efficient when you're leveraging technology, especially from a project management perspective, from all the wealth of information you learn from one project. How do you hold on to that and you're not starting from ground level one, zero to be able to do that? So what about artificial intelligence?
So AI is another absolutely important facet for how technology will affect us today and will affect us in the future. I think there are real and imagined aspects as to at what even though it's exponentially impacting many markets, where we're applying AI is largely in the low-hanging opportunities to get iterative decision making made, to take human time and effort out of taking information and putting it into a decision-making format. Okay. In the design environment, it's also helpful in iterating concepts as a starting point, but they're not necessarily definitive design. Right. And because you still need to look at, there's a lot of quantitative, and we forget there's qualitative analysis in looking at what's going to make for a great space. And what might make a great space, for instance, in a student union at USC Upstate might be different than what another university wants to accomplish in terms of their campus experience and what. There aren't universal kind of applied concepts. The key is AI is helping us accelerate those concepts such that we get a digital set of answers that we can compare to our human ability to interpret that in terms of how does that really feel, how does that really work. What's the human experience in that? AI can't quite replicate that, right? What it is allowing us to do is get to the answer faster, potentially, and then to explore more options in a much shorter period of time with more efficiency.
So will AI make architects antiquated? Because they're saying that AI is going to get rid of certain types of workforce. All of those, do you see that?
Actually, if you read the studies, architecture is rarely listed as one of those professions. And the other thing I'll say is architecture is an enduring profession. We built the pyramids with architects, right? And there's been a lot of technological, change in building methods and knowledge, from that period. So, although there was a lot of wisdom then that we don't always appreciate today. What I will say is, no, I don't think so. I think architecture has to continuously adapt.
Okay.
Right. And I think so no different than being able to go from a slide rule to AutoCAD, and to calculators to AutoCAD to Revit in 3-dimensional design. AI is going to continue to challenge us to adapt and use tools to create better, more qualitatively oriented design. But but putting buildings together, as a reminder, it's an imperfect business.
Okay.
Construction, we're not mass producing with robots on a fixed flat surface most of the time, right? The environmental conditions, the context for a particular site, kind of adaptive needs as organizations change, even while we're in the midst of design, are always changing.
That brings something up. McMillan Pazdan Smith has a very strong relationship for designing education environments that are flexible, that are collaborative. In my experience working with you all and other architectural firms, there's been a lot of conversation about the industry, about what society needs, all of those type of things. Conversation you don't expect to have with the architect, right? I know they're trying to figure out what this building needs to happen. So do you believe that that architecture supports learning outcomes?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, and I think one of the missing opportunities so far is you take an application like innovation AI data is correlating patterns in the built environment that actually can be looked at in cohorts in a building environment in terms of their academic growth, their academic success. Also, there are parademographic influences that occur there too. Like take a healthcare. I mean, like take a K-12 environment, mobility. In discipline and infraction, attendance factors. The accommodation for special needs. Those are all things that environment has to contemplate to ensure students' success that are beyond the importance of the test score and the importance of understanding, resources and outcomes. I think ultimately what we're going to get better at is understanding how all those factors influence the student experience and outcome holistically, in addition to what we're looking at sort of quantitatively in terms of what we're learning from academic instruction and intervention. The other thing is student needs change. We didn't imagine in 2017 that the degree of remote learning potential we now see today would be what it is today, right? We also are encountering generational change. And I think this is really important to education and designing spaces. And you're seeing it both from K through PhD experience. The integration now of collaborative learning and the importance of that. Generationally, and I don't believe in categories in particular generations, but we know the millennial generation, as it takes over leadership of organizations, tends to make decisions in a collaborative form. They like and they find value in taking the diversity of thought and converting it into decision making. By the way, architects enjoy doing that as well. So I think we're well placed, for instance, to help shape what do those environments need to be to facilitate the value of that, right. For future learning generations.
I didn't have as much appreciation for that until after I did my dissertation. My research was focused on service environment in terms of looking at higher education and using this instrument called Service Qual to assess quality. And it was an instrument that was used in banking, that's been used in hospitals, but it was never used in higher education. And it had 5 different parameters that we looked at, but the service environment was one of the ones where students or customers felt that they got a better experience based on how it looked. Most prominent, if you look at a hospital, you can go to a county hospital that is center blocks and all those type of things. And right across the street, you have an academic medical center that has beautiful glass and high ceilings and all those type of things. So the patient felt he or she got a better medical experience. And the hospital that had this beautiful service environment with pianos and art and all those type of things had the same doctors, exact same doctors that were in the county hospital, and both of them were like 1 block apart. And this was a city in Birmingham that I was studying at the time. And just the architecture, they call it the service environment, the service-scape, that environment made such a big difference in healthcare and medical care. And I think higher education just started, again, ushering those types of, in the last decade or so, really thinking about the service environment and how it influences learning.
I think that's great. I think likewise in economic development, it's the same reason communities make major investments in the experience of their public environments.
Right.
The quality of that environment affects the ability to continue effective growth and well-being, and the ability to attract talent and industry to your community.
So, what trends do you see in educational facility design that future architects and educators should be prepared for?
I'll highlight one that's just of late we find ourselves more involved in them and excited to help lead in it. It's an intersection of things that we actually are doing in practice. The concept of 3P.
Okay.
So, for instance, the reality is that campuses involved a lot of land assets, and the location of those assets as to where you mentioned the service environment, where services are placed, and potentially their adjacencies and relationships when you're going to talk about innovation and research and its relationship to industry.
Okay.
Right. Or with key employers in the healthcare space, or in public policy or public spaces. What we're seeing more and more is we're providing and we're growing advisory and consultancy capability that's beyond just traditional architects. We're bringing in people from those markets, those industries, and we're partnering academic environments with private development to also look at how do we maximize the value of those land assets, both in terms of the student experience that you described, but in also unlocking the potential for those to be extensions of the college and its involvement, engagement with surrounding research and innovation opportunity. Right. So innovation districts, or the concept of creating environments where industry, higher education, research, and a living, working environment coming together involves actually work across our practice groups. Yeah. And so I would argue some of our strengths as a firm, and I think for architects that are multidisciplinary in terms of the markets that they serve, when you get into that Venn diagram where our groups are working together. For instance, we've had a great level of success building regional capability in healthcare academic environments.
Okay. Yes.
Right. And that's due to the strength of the healthcare practice that we have working with systems throughout the Southeast, along with our higher ed practice, looking at both facets of that and combining our energy to produce great learning environments, but are specifically to develop the next generation of healthcare training. Similarly, that works in industrial. So when you look at industrial training facilities or industrial experience centers, and the humanistic aspects of what it takes now to attract quality talent to the advanced manufacturing space, and what they learn in the technical community colleges or in the 4-year systems, or the research associated with that advanced manufacturing, and what we want to bring to the region in terms of science and technology, as for instance, in addition to automotive and other and aerospace and other advancements we're making regionally. We think we can offer a lot by bringing in the advisory support that is taking people both from planning, architecture, and from industry or from those markets to actually look holistically at those planned environments, even before we've designed a single building.
So McMillan Pazdan Smith has received industry recognition, including from the ENR Southeast. What role does this external validation plays in motivating your teams?
It's again, this is where I think humility has to come forward a bit, right? It's important to have. It's helpful and important to have affirmation from peers to recognize your work and to help you stay focused on the things that as a profession matter, right? I think you also have to have some humility, though, in understanding that in and of itself is not the reward. It's an affirmation of outcomes that we then can get proud of continuing to grow and develop. So it's like, to me, enjoy the press, and use that as a way to validate that we're doing things that are meaningful and good. I think it's also important, frankly, in terms of talent and folks being aware of our firm and the quality of our architecture, the quality and the impact we're making, and who we are, sort of as a culture. And I think that's important. But ultimately, and I know our team, we appreciate that.
I think that's important. I think it's exciting. It's good to have architecture firms or work with someone that is being recognized by others that you're doing very good. So looking ahead, what are the biggest opportunities and challenges you see for architecture and community design in the Southeast and beyond? What are some of the biggest opportunities and challenges?
Well, there's opportunity everywhere.
Okay.
Okay. I think the key is, what are the key opportunities when we're thinking about our firm or just in the built environment in general? I mentioned, we look at right now, without even talking about Florida and Texas. Texas is the world's 5th largest economy. Florida's like 12 or 13, and globally, right?
Yeah.
GDP. Even in the core Southeast and even up in kind of lower Mid-Atlantic, but you're talking, okay, now we can say 40, 50 MSAs that size. Now without even looking at major metros. And then the tertiary communities around that are growing as well.
Right.
I mean, and the amount of transformation that's happening with the sort of the metropolitan mix that's beginning to occur throughout the region, with also sensitivity to what's made cultural connection and relationships so important and remain so important regionally. Mm-hmm. You think about all the opportunities in that. So many communities need well-developed spaces and housing. So many communities are feeling the need to plan, understand, and then develop facilities to meet public services needs. Right. The enrollment in academic institutions for future workforce tends to gravitate to where folks are, right? Yeah. And so we're, even though there may be, there is the concern or concept of kind of the enrollment bubble. Right. What we're seeing regionally is a continued growth because people are with migration, they continue to come here. Yeah. When you look at schools, when you look at the need for community health care and wellness, behavioral health is a huge opportunity that we and a need that we need to address regionally. I mean, I can go on and on.
I'm saying
throw a rock and see opportunity
because I'm saying in this region just continue to grow. Migration from across other communities across the globe, across the country. The Southeast is a great place to be. Spartanburg, Greenville are great places to be.
Those are both problems and opportunities.
So talk about the problems.
So a problem, I'll give you an example. McMillan Pazdan Smith is a member of the Large Firm Roundtable for AIA. It's about 50 to 60 firms. I believe that just that set of firms employs 60% or so of the architects throughout the AIA. I mean, in terms of the consolidation in those firms of the work. When you think about that group, so I'm working right now on a committee with a peer, working with the executive committee for the Large Firm Roundtable on looking at community resiliency and the economic impact of resiliency. I think Helene is a great example of that. Okay. And I'm not even, the beauty of this study to some degree is we're not really tackling so much climate change and causation. Mm-hmm. We're talking about climate and environmental resiliency. Yeah. How are communities built? What are the economic and community impacts of well-designed spaces, particularly in an era where we're designing a lot of new spaces and have the opportunity to transform, adapt, and then develop greenfield new spaces, right? To build in this kind of thinking in the way we do things. Number one, I think it's the principle of stewardship. Leaving it better than we found it for future generations. But secondly, there's real economic value in thinking about resiliency for the building owner. For the building user, and ultimately for communities in terms of how well things are designed to deal with resilient conditions.
I do think that stress testing communities help to build resilience as well. So growth becomes a part of that stress. Even natural disasters become a part of that stress. Yes. And you can continue to invest in building more resilient communities that way as well.
And then I think socially, looking at social capital and the opportunity for people to have access to opportunity in how we design things.
Yeah. So that transitioned well into coming towards the end here. But what advice would you give young professionals who aspire to leadership in architecture and design?
Well, number one, you mentioned the concern over AI and kind of the future of architecture. I can tell you with sincerity and confidence, the future for architecture is bright. Okay. The ability to adapt and to innovate, to apply technology and innovation, to be a part of the future planning of campuses, of communities, for long-term public impact and good is an exciting place for young people to invest. Yeah. Right. With that, I'll also share there's a tremendous amount of opportunity when you think about architecture as a field. it's great for people to come, and I encourage interested folks to come spend a few days with us in their early years. Like we're investing heavily in the K-12 system and educating on the A&E environment, what kind of careers are available in that environment. Another interesting statistic is just know our firm is about 48% female.
Okay.
So it is, and when you look at our enrollment in architecture school, it's actually tipped now where there's more female enrollment than male enrollment. We're seeing increased and a lot of focus on minority participation in the AE space. It's historically been an underrepresented environment.
Right.
I want to encourage folks to invest in this. It is a great career. You ultimately find yourself in an intersection both of the craft of the profession, but also the ability to be involved in shaping public space. And so you end up at the intersection of a lot of community connection and community involvement, both passionately and in your work.
Right.
And whether you're more design oriented or more technically oriented, there are career paths within the context of architecture where we're probably applying innovation, and we have roles that span from the tech sector to planning, to design, to industry representation in the way we build practice. There's a lot of opportunity in architecture. That's what I would say.
So when you reflect on your career, what guiding principles have been the most important in helping you to lead through change for you?
So my life verse is Micah 6:8.
Okay.
Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God.
Okay.
So I think I try to distill things down to that simple thing, right? So when I think about leading through change, is what we're doing right?
Okay.
Right? Is it for the right motivation? Is it purposeful? Purely financial motivations are not my motivation. Right. Now, I will say, when you do things well, you tend to also accomplish good financial results, and good financial results allow you to reinvest and give back. We have a principle when we talk about when we do our strategic planning, when we talk about profit, we say responsible profit.
Right.
And what we mean by that is we have an obligation to perform well on behalf of the client with respect to the stewardship of the resources we've been given and the trust we've been given. We have a responsibility for it to perform well so that we can continue to invest in our firm, and we want to give back to the community. All those facets. So when I think about that bottom line for me, and as a leader through change, like COVID as a for instance, you can never over communicate, but there needs to be clarity in the message,
right?
And so I think keeping things simple and consistent in your vision and mission, like you mentioned, the wartime versus peacetime general, empathy is really important. And I think if we look nationally at leadership, and maybe the way CEOs and leaders have been characterized, and maybe in some ways, I don't think it's necessary from the concept of performance. I think often it's from the perspective of empathy.
Okay.
How is what we're doing? How does it feel to our people? And how does it affect them for the positive? How does it feel to our clients, or in our case, to the communities that those clients reside in and missionally do work in? I think that's the key thing, is empathy through change.
And I think that's very powerful. We've often heard quotes from Maya Angelou that people quote all the time about people remember. They may not remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. So I think leadership is a lot about the empathy that you're able to employ in decisions that you make. So this whole conversation is around the framework of below the line. It's basically leading below the line. And often leaders have to guide others through things that are unseen, kind of like the iceberg, right? So what does leading below the line mean to you when you hear that phrase?
When I read that, Dr. Harris, I sort of thought about what's the underlying principle, the outcome when we look back on our career and the leadership impact we've made. For me, more and more, I think as you grow, you mature, it's about what we see the people we've invested in accomplish, right? It really. I mean, I'm blessed at the sort of providence of what my career has now allowed me to be placed in to help lead. And my season will be my season, doing that. But I feel a strong sense that leaders have an obligation to develop those around them to take up the next season, right? So for me, below the line to me means I want to know kind of the well done, faithful servant. But beyond that, I want to know that I've left a good impact in my work. That the values I described are evident in the way I operated. I'm not perfect, You
invested in, you left people better than they were.
Did I inspire? Did I foster trust? what was I collaborative and caring?
Yeah.
Did I demonstrate empathy in the way I led, even when it was tough decisions?
Yeah.
It's not always a democracy, right? It's not. But was there empathy and care in the way we did it? And then I think, did we care about the impact we made? Was it purposeful? And did we take something in our tenure, in our season as a leader, from a position to build on the shoulders, or sometimes transform what was there into something that we can look back and say, we worked through people to develop something great, and we left it in a position that people can carry on, into something greater. And I really do believe that's the below the line, I think, for us. Yeah.
Well, I'm here with Chad Cousin, CEO of McMillan Pazdan Smith. Chad, it's been a great experience talking with you. I've learned a lot. I have a lot of respect for you and what you're accomplishing and how you're leading this firm. So thank you so much for spending time with Below the Line.
Thank you for letting me participate, Dr. Harris.
The Below the Line podcast is brought to you by the University of South Carolina Upstate. Look for our monthly write-up in Greenville Business Magazine, and for more information, go to uscupstate.edu.